This is a Historica Esoterica Lost File. Number 001. Matt the Magician and Noted Medium.
I was going to start this by I found the the section of the King James Bible in which the parable of the prodigal son is related.
Yes.
But I decided I should not do that. That seemed just a little too sacrilegious for my taste.
Fair enough.
But
The prodigal boys return.
yes, exactly. But hello, listeners.
Hello.
It's been a little bit. Apologies. Roswell and I have reconnected after a long time away. I had Havana syndrome, so I was
Yep.
I was out. But
He was out. Yeah, but thankfully he was revived.
Yeah, I escaped.
He escaped, and I escaped the clutches of the Jesuits who were keeping me under a monastery in France. So, but thankfully I'm back.
But yes, anyway, sorry for our prolonged absence. It's been a crazy little time, a crazy little period of time for us. But
Yeah.
we're here, we're back, and we're going to give you guys something slightly different. This was, I'll admit, Roswell's brainchild, so I will hand it to him to explain the vague outline here before we just get into it, as we're getting back into the saddle of parapolitics.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we officially started this podcast, we were like, oh, we're going to be very well researched about this. We're going to be very intellectual, which I think we did a very good job of with every episode. I'm very proud of it.
Why do you think we took so long? Yeah.
Because we were actually working. Unfortunately, we were ruining our brains and souls with evil knowledge that should be forbidden. So that's that was tough. It made it hard to do this. So that was one consideration. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a couple little more laid back things come out in betwixt more researched. Is that a word? Betwixt?
I think
sorry.
so.
Okay,
it better
well,
be.
we'll take
Because
it.
I've used it in papers before. So
Okay, well, I trust you more than I trust me because you're actually literate. I just listen to old movies a lot. But yeah, so anyway, in between like our more research stuff where we'll talk vagaries, a little less researched, but still in our purview, hopefully interesting and engaging.
Yeah.
You know, giant schoolies, goblins, government malfeasance, as you would put it. That's the basic idea. But let's just do a little check-in because it's been a while. It's been, I believe at the end of our last episode, I said, I'm excited to get back into this. This is going to be more regular. And that episode came out in like March 2023.
Yeah, and so we lied to you, but
whoops.
that will possibly be the end of our lives.
Yeah. But just a little check-in. I remember our goals at the beginning of this podcast. My goal was to make you a Christian, and your goal was to make me a communist, or a Marxist, rather. So let's check in. How'd that go?
Well, I am a Christian.
And I am...
You've done a little bit of the reading, you know.
I've done a lot of the reading.
Yeah, there we go.
If it was 1950, boy, would I be in trouble. Let's just put it that way.
And that's all I need. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So I think we both fulfilled our goals, and that was a season 1 goal. So now we can move on to season 2. We need to set out some new goals. What are our new bugbears?
You know, that's a great question. I think, you know, now that Program to Chill has been retired as a project, we can just say that we will talk about parapolitics, business, and esoterica.
With your host, Matt K. Ultra and Roswell. We should
we'll
just take his
hire
theme
him.
song too.
Yeah, that
like,
like
what?
steel string guitar. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just a 1960s surf rock song. That might be the vibe. No, yeah, I think we need to maybe get a little bit more into business.
No, definitely.
We haven't done any like deep, because like business of those 3 things, business is less interesting to me. I think for most people it's probably the less interesting thing, but also it, like if you actually examine it, it's so vitally important and very fascinating. It like loops back around to be fascinating.
Yeah, like all of the important things, initially it seems very boring and lame, and then
Totally.
you learn anything about it and go, oh, actually,
Oh, this is dope. Yeah. Yeah, because I know you mentioned the like talking about like Krupp Steel and stuff like that way back when. So I'm like, I need to look into that because when we started this, I was naive. I was not quite as PTK pilled as you. I was just a sweet boy who knew there was more to the world than meets the eye. And I was like, ooh, I want to talk about ghoulies and goblins and magic and, ooh. And here we are. And as soon as I learned about it, I was like, oh, it's so not fun.
You're like, oh, no.
It's so evil. The Dracularity is real.
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't know. It's, again, I feel one of the moments in which, because I loved the Krupp Steel and everything that, like, Jimmy Fallon Gong, rest in power, everything that he said. I was always fascinated by that. But the moment that I truly realized just how like on things he was when I last year first read Gravity's Rainbow, and like Krupp Steel and IG Farben get like mentioned at several points throughout the book, and it's like, oh no,
oh no, yeah, yeah, that's fascinating, and that's another reason why I need to get more into Pynchon because Pynchon.
Yeah, Pynchon. At least that's how he identifies himself during his Simpsons cameo. So,
is Pynchon?
Yeah,
that's great. I didn't know he's in the Simpsons. That's so weird. Sorry,
have I not told you that? Yeah, hang on. Maybe that'll be. We might use that as a drop. I might have you.
That might be.
I might send them to you. But yeah, he has two cameos. One of them, if I remember right, it's that Marge wrote a book, and he gives like a blurb for the cover where he goes like, "Tell them that Thomas Pynchon loved this as much as he loves cameras." And in the other cameo he did, he was supposed to call Homer like a fat idiot or something like that, and he sent it back to them and said like, Homer is my hero and I would never denigrate him.
Oh, he rocks.
He's so cool.
God, that I definitely need to read this book. Yeah, I read The Crying of Lot 49, which I know he doesn't have a high opinion of, but god dang does that book go.
It is.
That book rips.
Yeah, it's a book that like you read it and you're like, oh, someone else gets it.
Exactly. Well, yes, that too. I was also just saying, just like the pacing of it, this is going to be a comparison that I'm sure everyone will hate, but as a film lover, it was very akin to the experience of watching Big Trouble in Little China for the first time.
No, actually,
it can't get crazier,
and it just keeps getting. Yeah, actually, no, that's a very good description. In that,
my favorite movie, by the way, which I'm sure is telling.
No, I was going to say. It's funny because I was going to say, like, yeah, Pynchon, my favorite novelist, and Carpenter, definitely one of my favorite directors. Like, and I feel they're also both criminally underrated by everyone else.
And a lot of good parapolitical themes in Carpenter as well.
Oh yes,
yes, there are. Did you ever watch Prince of Darkness?
Oh yeah, no,
Awesome.
I mean, look, Big Trouble in Little China is your favorite movie. The Thing is my favorite movie.
The Thing is like parallel. In terms of Carpenter's work with me.
It's
I
perfect.
just like Happiness more than you.
Yeah. Which admittedly, an easy bar to sail over. But nonetheless, when I first watched The Thing and then watched it 5 more times, I started researching it and they're like, yeah, this is part of the Apocalypse trilogy. And I was like, well, time to watch the other two.
And they're both so good. I think In the Mouth of Madness is slightly better than Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
But man, those are good.
Prince
of Darkness is like one of the few movies that I've seen that's like actually a Lovecraft story, like not just in aesthetic.
That like understands what that means.
It gets the point. Yeah, I mean, obviously the Thing is as well, right?
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. I feel weird fiction. We've both talked about this. Other people have talked about this, but I feel weird fiction is just so perfectly in line with a parapolitical project, right?
It's
like there's a reason that we
aspect.
Yeah, there's a reason that like one of the first like not even remotely officially like noited things we talked about was like The King in Yellow.
In Yellow,
like, that's, and I still cannot believe that I managed to record that entire episode without plugging my microphone. Maybe my greatest regret so far. Outside of
it's a good. It's like our second most listened to episode too.
Yeah,
which is the funniest.
Is Bobby Fischer still the
Bobby
the
Fischer's
top of the
number
pile?
one? And you know what? I'm not mad about it. It was a good episode.
No, it was a great episode.
Yeah. Shouts out to Mike Kaolcha.
Yeah, who still just floors me every time we try to play chess together. I want to, in case the listeners were wondering if that has changed over this year. Nope, I was not getting better at chess over this year. But
oh man, maybe I need to start playing chess with your brother because I want to learn.
Oh yeah, failure is the best teacher, and one
Absolutely.
day it will return an assignment to me. But currently, I'm just getting a lot of like see me after class.
Oh man, you're the way you speak is so funny. You're like you're like Twitter poster Mark Twain.
I'm like if Mark Twain had a character limit. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You have some great like aphorisms, which I absolutely appreciate. But yeah, so it's been a while. Sorry about that. Oh, but in talking about movies, I know we had mentioned talking about like Noided media. We're already here. Let's talk about it.
Sure.
Because you wanted to have an excuse to read what you are rereading and also to shoehorn it into a podcast. So let's hear it.
Guilty as charged.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I feel, I'm sure that you have also consumed a good deal of Noided media since
I've been watching primarily 70s films, so yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nothing but paranoia in those
Absolutely.
ones. And occasionally massive amounts of cocaine where you look at that and
Yeah.
go, maybe that part isn't for me, but how can I argue with the results?
Exactly. Freaking, you're on notice.
But yeah, no, I will say, yeah, even though we haven't recorded, I haven't consciously consumed anything for the podcast. I have definitely been training myself. Like I said, I've reacquainted myself with and then just acquainted myself with all of Thomas Pynchon's novels over the last year. And it's crazy how he just gets better the more you read his stuff. And I feel this is another thing that we can keep from our initial recordings and our initial season, right? The belief that fiction can absolutely like point to truths and do so in a very meaningful and sometimes in a more direct way than like nonfiction can.
Absolutely. Because it cuts to the... Oh, sorry. Continue.
I was going to say, yeah, like there's that... it's shielded somewhat from like questions of like legal culpability.
Sure, right.
Because you can say like, well, this is a work of fiction. But also, yeah, like it gets to what I imagine you were about to say, like the sort of ecstatic truth of things, right?
Yeah.
Like the spiritually true aspects of these stories, I feel, can outshine any of the like fictional like additions that the author feels the need to make for just the sake of a vague concept of a narrative in the case of Pynchon, or an actual narrative in the case of some other Noided writers.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, that's our famous saying, famous among you and me, is like talking about spiritual, like it's not necessarily literally true, but it's spiritually true. And like, that was definitely the case of, did you ever see You Were Never Really Here?
Oh, yeah.
That is a spiritually true movie.
Yeah.
I watched
just
that.
A great movie.
It's very good. Ooh, it's not my favorite type of movie, which is to say it's very dark and it made me sad.
And that, I will say...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, it's my favorite type of movie. I would say it's quite dark and very sad. But
you and I... Truly the two sides of the Manichean coin, or the Manichean coin, or however you pronounce it.
But yeah, no, Joaquin Phoenix's filmography in general, it's crazy how...
Dude,
the guy just doesn't miss.
What did he know?
I have my theories, which...
I do too.
Even on this, our loose episode in which we haven't done research, even on this one, I don't feel comfortable sharing my theories, but I've got some theories.
For sure, yeah. I mean, yeah, there is a lot of, like just the story of him in, like, his public persona and everything. There's just so much where you're like, huh.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I'm not going to say, his weird appearances on, talk shows were MK Ultra programming. I'd never say that, Matt.
I would also never say that.
I would never say it.
We might say that others have said that and that we respect those who have, but
sure.
We wouldn't ever say that.
Yeah. Never ask Matt his opinions about Katy Perry. We need to just do an episode on
I was
her.
gonna say, brother, we could do that'll be our return to deeply researched things, because like it or not, I I feel I definitely can say that I am in the top 1% of this
Yeah.
nation's Katy Perry scholars.
I believe it. I believe it. And you know what else we can do? Because like the themes of this podcast are clearly dark and light. You know, we're combating the darkness with the light of God. Sorry, but like I was thinking, the way we could do that in that episode is we spend a bunch of time on Katy Perry, and then we pivot to who else? Carly Rae Jepsen.
Oh, I was hoping. I didn't want
Yeah.
to. I didn't want to assume, but
You didn't want to assume, but that's exactly
yes, exactly.
our queen, CRJ.
my girl. Yeah, but
I need to do a biblical reading of "Call Me Maybe."
let me
I
tell
bet
you,
I could find something.
there's a lot of material there. But
But yeah, anyway, Joaquin Phoenix, you were never really here. Boy, I did not actually when I first watched, I didn't think it was going to be like politically.
oh, really?
No, it caught me off guard, and I mean, because I knew he was like an ex-marine who kills pedophiles. So okay, I knew there was going to be some stuff there.
Yeah, there would be some Historica Esoterica themes, if nothing
Absolutely,
else. But
exactly. But I did not expect it to be as blatant as it was with
Yeah.
the like the sex trafficking house and the obviously political people who are related to it, and like the cops being in on it, and like it. That was one of the most shocking things I'd seen in a movie in a while. Was the scene where he's got the I'm forgetting the young woman's name. Not young woman. She's a girl. She's a child. That's the whole point. Sorry.
Yep. No, as
yeah.
we both fell into the same. I've done the same thing. Yeah, like you fall into the trap of how
'Cause you wanna
everyone
make it-
reports on these things. Yeah,
You want to make it less icky for yourself, I think, is
Yeah.
the natural thing. But no, it's the child, the little girl who he's saved from a den of debauchery, and he is they're like in a hotel, and then someone knocks on the door. He opens it up. It's like the hotel manager who just immediately gets his brains blown out by a cop. And you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, again, I mean, going back to, we've talked about Program to Kill before. We will, I think, I'm comfortable saying we will eventually, like, just actually do an episode fully on that one, but that one will be
Yes,
quite researched. But
for sure.
yeah, one of the
With
things
one
I've
major
found,
source.
but one of the things I've found that even like the most like quote unquote normal people I know, right? The ones anyone who's read anything of Program to Kill, even the ones who don't entirely agree with its premise, all of them go like, yeah, it is crazy just how many instances he's able to find of like law enforcement officials and other people in power like materially benefiting from this case not being solved for as long as it is. Like it is, another thing we've talked about privately and probably on an episode in the past, right? Like the distinction between like malice and incompetence, I feel after a certain point becomes very blurry, where it's like, no, even if this is purely incompetent, its effects are so wholly malicious that I have no
Yeah.
issue condemning it. Like,
Well, it's like something Subliminal Jihad talked about on their 9/11 is mass ritual episode, which, by the way, was the first episode I listened to on your recommendation. And I was like, oh my God, he's insane.
I forgot that that's where I told you to start.
Yeah.
And
I
unfortunately, I stand by it.
No, I'm re-listening to it, and I'm actually like, okay, it was just a lot at once. But
Oh, yeah.
they mentioned. I think Dimitri mentioned that, like, like the way a lot of this like works is the U.S. government is so compartmentalized, so it's less like one department or one person leading the charge, but you've got these different nodes, which some may have certain knowledge of the other nodes and certain connection. They're all connected to each other on some level, and they're all working on something, but they might be independent of each other. Like,
Yeah.
your right
No,
hand
in
might
the-
not know what your left hand is doing, for example.
Yeah, in the same way that, like, actually another noted bit of film that I don't
Yeah.
think it was the first time I watched it, but it was the first time I watched it, since becoming the person that you all know and loathe. But I rewatched Oliver Stone's JFK, right? Which,
Oh yeah, wild one.
for all the criticisms I could have of, like, his exact narrative about the JFK assassination, right?
For
Like,
sure.
everyone who researches the JFK assassination will come away with like a different like set of motives and suspects in mind.
Yeah.
Maybe by design, but that's not the point. But for any and all of the criticisms I could have of that, one of the most like prescient points it makes, I think, is the idea that like you can plan an assassination like that without any of the people involved explicitly saying that that's what they're doing,
Sure.
or I mean, and also without many of the people involved knowing that that's what they're doing. Like,
Absolutely. Because they're part of a greater system.
Yeah.
water wheel of blood, as it were.
Yes. Interesting. But yeah, no, exactly. Like
A
it's,
phrase you might find if you ever read the manuscript I sent you, jerk.
no, that
Oh,
one
you
I
remembered.
did.
Oh, okay, cool.
That one I did clock. Yeah. But yeah, exactly. Like it's one of the things that I find most frustrating whenever anyone's attempting to debunk conspiracies around like JFK or 9/11 or even the smaller ones that not everyone has a take on, is like the
Yeah.
idea where it's like, what you mean to tell me that every single Secret Service agent there knew what was going on? It's like, no, of course they didn't.
Yeah, that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah, but you can play out a part in an occulted play
Yeah.
without knowing what it is that you're doing.
Sure.
Going back to The Crying of Lot 49, that like entire chapter that is just him describing a Jacobean revenge play, right? And it's weird how this perfectly parallels all of the themes of the novel.
Yeah.
Turns out this guy knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah. No, it's very true. And I mean, like, it even goes back to just like basic like spy knowledge of like if you watched a spy movie of like blinds and double blinds, or is that what they call it? Like, like information on a need to know basis. Like, but it does make you wonder, is like there ultimately some module of this, we'll call it system, that has, if not all the knowledge, enough of like the base of what the idea is, that they could pull the strings like that.
oh,
It's a
absolutely.
question
Yeah.
that could be asked. And is it Al Shaitan?
Yeah. Well, you know what I think about that. But yeah, no, it's the same as you watch like any mob movie, right? And it's the same idea. right?
Yeah.
If you're doing something remotely unscrupulous, obviously you don't want to tell all of the moving parts that that's what they're doing.
For sure.
Sometimes your job is just to drive a truck somewhere, park it,
Yeah.
and walk away.
And there's something odd about it.
Yeah. But you don't know what.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I was watching that one of those weird reality shows that you just catch on. I was at a hospital last night, and I was watching with someone the TV, and they had a show on. I wish I could remember the name of it. It was about like border agents catching like drug stuff.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And so there was a woman who was driving a car across, and it was a woman they see crossing the border from Mexico into Texas all the time. She's a very friendly lady, but she rang their alarm bells because she was driving a car and she looked very, like, she looked worried or something.
Mm-hmm.
So of course they pull the car over, and then they find a bunch of cocaine or something or whatever in there.
Yeah.
And she apparently didn't know the extent to the drugs, but she knew that the cartel had asked her to take a car from point A to point B. And so I think that's a good, like, small example of like what could happen on a bigger level with like 9/11, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be a moving part in these sorts of things, and you can act entirely without malice, while also knowing that you are maybe part of a more nefarious scheme, and you're not doing it out of like a love of doing something evil, but out of like either
Sure.
fear for yourself or your family, or just
Right.
out of necessity. Like, I
Right.
need to pay rent, and these guys just gave me thousands of dollars to drive a car from point A to point
Exactly.
B. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, and you got to do what you got to do, and I think it exists on a governmental level too, because there's like, well, this is my job, so like if you tell me to, deliver this set of instructions to this guy and not read them, okay, I'm going to do that, right? There's going to be some more, some less culpable members along the chain.
Yeah,
but then you get to a
absolutely.
certain point where you're like, for example, in the OKC bombing, with the police, and it's like.
another
But-
read from this last year, Aberration in the Heartland of the Real, which I
Great
highly recommend for everybody.
Highly recommend book. Yeah, that was much like, I think if I hadn't read Program to Kill, I would have had a lot more tough time with that, because it's a lot more dense and academic, obviously, but it's not just as depressing, but it is also quite depressing. And so it was nice having the what did Jimmy Fallon call it? The not the epistemological battering ram, but the
oh my goodness. I know-
ontological battering
Yes.
ram of Program to Kill, just destroying your psyche.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
one of the things about it that I feel is most valuable, is the fact that like McGowan is like, he's doing very careful research. He's including a lot of things.
Sure.
Also, admittedly, as we've said before, we've joked about, right? There are some things that he includes and you're like, okay, Dave. Like, the day before the summer solstice is just June 20th. Like, that's
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
But
You
like,
you don't need to point out that it's the day before the summer
yeah,
solstice.
but because he's so willing to just like go like, no, there is something nefarious at play
Yeah.
here, it makes it very hard to throw out all of the evidence that he provides that is just genuinely true,
It
along
becomes-
with his more spurious claims.
Sure. Yeah, and that's where, like, I mean, and this is true of anything. If you're going to form any worldview or like have an opinion on anything, you need to have critical thinking skills. Unfortunately, you can't just rely on someone to tell you what to think.
Yeah.
Because even if the person is trustworthy and like has good faith, like, I mean, you still fall into some pitfalls with that, like, because now you're at their mercy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not around, then what do you think? So anyway, the point being, like, if you're going to read someone like Dave McGowan, like, I know we joke about him like PTK is the Bible, but
Yeah.
like, even with the Bible, right, you need critical thinking, by the whole point is to ponder over it, right? So like, and the same is true with this type of stuff where like you can look at, he lays out so much information and you start to notice patterns on your own, even without him winking at you. So whereas you can look at something and be like, all right, that probably doesn't matter. But then you start to look at other patterns where you're like, ooh,
This one does, though. Yeah.
it
like,
does. Yeah.
which I think is kind of by design, because
Sure.
McGowan, like any honest writer dealing with these sorts of themes, never comes forward and says, like, I know the answer to every question I'm going to pose in this book. Like,
Right.
many of the most compelling sections of Program to Kill, in my opinion, are just him, like, pointing to a consistent, like, series of, like, gaps in investigations, or, like,
Yes.
he's like, it's weird how all of the serial killer investigations all failed to ask this question, huh?
Right.
I wonder what was going on there. And then he
Yeah,
doesn't.
what does that mean?
He doesn't tell you because
Because he doesn't know.
yeah, it would
And
be
that's okay.
dishonest. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's kind of a problem we see especially at this time period that we're living in mainstream journalism, is where it does feel like, and I don't know if you've noticed this trend, but it does feel like every news story or like all this stuff seems to have they all have to have a moral and b like a conclusive opinion on it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Which,
yeah.
and I don't know how true that's always been of the media, but it seems definitely true in like our age, right? Where it's like, this is what you should think. This is the conclusion we've come to, and this is what you should think. It's like, well, it's been 2 days since P. Diddy news came out. How could you
Yeah.
have a cosmology of the entire thing this quickly? Like,
Exactly. And if you're going to approach it through that sort of thing, I think you need to acknowledge it, right? Like the fact that I use like a very Marxist framework, I use a very Neuded framework when I'm understanding the news, which I'll admit does mean that there are probably like news stories where I sort of miss something, right? Like there's details I fail to pick up on because I know what it is that I'm going in looking for.
sure.
That doesn't, I feel, discount the insights that I have, but also I
No.
think I must be honest with, myself and anyone I'm speaking to about those things and go, hey, I know to pick up on these sorts of things. Like if someone
Right.
if someone is killed seemingly without motive by a suppressed 22 shot to the head,
Yeah.
McGowan has primed me to sort
Sure.
of raise my eyebrows at that fact,
Well,
right?
and
Like,
if you think about it, it's sort of the same training that a lot of academics will go through in like specific research, where it's like, okay, so we're giving you a tool set, a mental tool set to, let's say you're a linguist, right? To go through and find certain patterns in language so you can make conclusions about who or what wrote this and how, not what, or maybe what, I guess, I don't know. But like who wrote this and like what was the context and this and this and that. And you have this mental tool set based on like, research and practice, right? And it's a
Yeah.
similar thing with Dave McGowan, because what you're getting after is so, I don't know, what's the term? Not vacuous.
just like amorphous, I guess. maybe?
Amorphous,
Yeah.
thank you. The word that was coming to my head was mellifluous, and I know that's not right.
It's not right, but it's such a good
It's a-
word that
it's
it's
a
hard
great
not to try
word.
and use it.
I would love to be mellifluous in this day and age. But no, like it's a thing that we don't have any, I guess, tools for in any mainstream context.
Mhm.
It's not something that's obviously taught in school. It's not something you're going to hear about on the news, but it's something that exists. Same thing with like spirituality and other stuff. Like it's not something that's mainstream in that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
No, I think that's absolutely, and I feel one of the best, just sort of case studies, I guess, for that sort of the limitations of more mainstream interpretations, or just
Sure.
just a good encapsulation of, I mean, a good demonstration of like where the bumper rails are on
Right.
those sorts of things, right? Is like looking at something like the so-called satanic panic, right? Like because obviously, like the angle that far right, like evangelical churches were taking was not
ridiculous.
correct.
Yeah.
Like it's just by the numbers. No, I do not think that 1/3 of all Americans were members of a satanic cult and sacrificing children. Maybe 1/3 of Americans in the 1980s were members of a satanic cult, which I like to call Reaganism. Hey, folks, that's right.
got 'em.
We're nothing but the hottest cultural criticisms of 1982
Yeah.
coming at you on this podcast.
You
But,
hear that? You hear that, conservatives? We don't like Reagan.
Yeah, are you triggered yet? But but also the mainstream understanding of the Satanic Panic nowadays that like it was all like false memories and nothing but like just silly religious people being upset at the concept of the devil existing.
Sure.
Like
it was a Bill Maher religious type situation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that also I feel has many failings. And
Well, and also Bill Maher, who has very publicly on his show just spread misinformation about, Christianity. I'm not going to be like a Christianity defender. You can criticize it till the dogs come home, and I think that's totally okay. But like, he's just spread historical and factual lies, like
about
the
like
whole
Christianity
Mithra stuff
and about
you know?
Islam. He also like just said the N-word. We really, as a culture, we skated past
We
that
moved
one
on
so
from it.
easily. But
Yeah, that's crazy that he didn't get. He got in trouble for saying that like we had 9/11 coming, which by the way rocks.
yeah, one of his
sorry.
correct takes.
On a spiritual level, like all those people obviously didn't deserve to die in that horrible manner. But like, what he was saying, like in terms of like America, like the symbology of America and what that meant was true and right. But then of course. So that he gets canceled for, but not the N-word. I'm on you, America KKK.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like not the N-word or like just his visceral and clear hatred of like Islam as a religion.
For sure.
Like,
which is
another.
horrible.
Again, we've joked before, right, about like the Tom Cruise interview with Matt Lauer, where like,
exactly.
everyone laughs at him, and you're looking at it now, and you're like, no, he's right about most of this, even if he is also a crazy Scientologist.
Yeah.
Similarly, like the Bill Maher episode where he has like Ben Affleck on, like. If you look at like all the comments now, because like Ben Affleck's like, Bill, you clearly just hate Muslim people and you should maybe chill out about it. And all of the comments on like the actual interview are just people going like, LOL, Ben is just clearly, he's bought into the religion of peace, quote unquote, LOL. And it's like, no, he is right. Like, maybe he's a little bit emotional and not entirely informed about these things because he's an actor. He's busy preparing to be the second worst version of Batman to ever grace our screens. I don't expect him to be researching like history and religion.
Right.
But there's, I don't know, you need to acknowledge that you're going to be missing a few pieces, but that doesn't inherently discount everything that you have to say about these sorts of issues.
And it's like that famous Onion article. It's like heartbreaking. The person who made the most just made a good point or something like that. Does happen. Like, it's unfortunately it's not a black and white world we live in, although everybody seems to keep trying to make it that way. Like, it's like good people can have bad points, bad people can have good points, and everything in between, and that's why it's so important to have critical thinking where you don't take anything at face value, where you measure it against obviously logic and your own wealth of knowledge and experience. Sorry, not to get on my soapbox, my little Roswell soapbox.
No, that's okay. We've been on our soapboxes. A little peek behind the curtain for our listeners. For about an hour and a half before we actually started recording, we just talked about Christian theology. So, like,
and it was so nice.
It was so pleasant.
It was
a wonderful conversation, and you'll never hear it, listeners.
You'll never hear it. We were equipping ourselves with the tools of righteousness to defend ourselves against darkness. That is this podcast.
Yeah, it turns out, guys, if you spend a year off and on battling with depression, researching satanic ritual abuse does not help that.
No. And it didn't help, honestly. Like, I'll be honest, it didn't help me either. I think it put me in a real bad mood for 2023. And so I think it's good we took a break, honestly, because that was tough. I don't know how. Jimmy Fallon Gong and the Subliminal Jihad Boys. I mean, obviously, Jimmy's gone, but how do they do it?
Yeah, it is crazy. Like
They must be so powerful mentally and spiritually.
Yeah, they, like, I feel, if you have like a historic esoteric drinking game and it's just like taking a shot every time we like praise either Jimmy Fallon Gong or the guys from Subliminal Jihad, like you will die. But nonetheless, like, yeah, they're the series they're doing on their Patreon about like Palestine, for instance, right now is like some of the most like insightful and interesting work on the subject matter, and also just some of the most depressing stuff you will ever hear.
That's why I avoided it.
And yeah, it's I don't know, but again, that's the other thing about like a more noided framework. Generally, in my case, also a Marxist one, but not necessarily, right? Like you don't need to understand historical materialism. I mean, dialectical materialism in order to understand history.
Sure.
But these sorts of frameworks, in my experience at least, are some of the only ones that actually make sense when you look at a lot of these like things that are currently happening or things that are happening in the past, right? Like where the mainstream understanding is like, well, it's just that those silly religious people can't stop killing each other, or like, well, it's just that a crazy guy had a gun, and it's like, well, that not only is that unsatisfying, which I'll admit,
I think we should turn it into a parking lot.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to shoot you in the face if you say that to me.
Yeah,
I'm going to commit an act of hatred on your brain.
I will do something terrible.
I will do something real, perhaps.
Oh yes, but like one of the interpretations from the less noted sphere of like people like us is like, well, they just can't conceive of the fact that bad things happen for no reason sometimes, and I think that's incredibly condescending and also rich coming from these people who can't conceive of the idea that sometimes bad things happen for a reason. But also, like, there's more to it than just the fact that, like, those sorts of things aren't narratively satisfying. It's the fact that there are clearly, like, other factors at play here.
For sure.
And the ability
you don't have all the information.
Yeah, and the ability to look at something through a framework which, A, admits that it doesn't have all the information, but B, does what it can with the information it has, I think is very valuable. And it's one of the things that helps. It has helped me in recent months remind myself that I'm not just crazy when like the news is saying something that is clearly untrue or wrong. Deeply skewed. Yeah.
Dude, oh man, when I was at the hospital the other day, someone, just for not dox myself, someone a show ended. I think Shark Tank ended and the 700 Club came on, and whoever was in charge of the remote left it on for a little while. And, as a Christian, I find that show repulsive. But they were talking about Israel-Palestine, and I was like, I cannot believe people consume this with a straight face, and just, like, it was infuriating as a person who, like, has only familiarized themselves with some basic facts. I was like, this is reckless. It was horrible. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. That's another thing about maybe I guess I'd call it like the anti-noided sphere, right? Like of news is the flippancy and arrogance that is required to do that sort of thing and go like, well, these people are grasping at straws.
Sure.
To go back to our theological discussion earlier, right? To go like, well, these guys are all missing something. Unlike me, I have the fullness of truth in my hands. And wouldn't you know it, the truth just happens to be the thing that does not in any way go up against my pre-existing beliefs about the world and politics. Like,
right. Yeah, no, it's funny.
I feel there is an ego required to be able to say that sort of thing with a straight face.
Yeah, well, I think that kind of gets down to, there is sort of a, if you've ever researched the rise of communism, you'll hear the phrase Russian, what was it? Russian, not patricianism. What is it? It's Russian.
Hang on.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
right?
now I'm drawing a blank too.
Yeah, no. It's on the tip of my tongue, but it's this sort of belligerence that, like, this kind of belligerent view that I am. Oh boy. Oh no. We're so back.
We are so
This
back.
is what happens when we don't research.
Yeah, we're forgetting things on air. This is perfect.
Oh man. Well, maybe I'll remember it. That pisses me off so much. Apologies, God.
What we'll do is here's what we'll do. You can just edit it in. You'll say the right thing.
Russian chauvinism.
And then we'll pick up
Yeah.
right here where I go, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. And so in line with that, there's an American version of that where
Yeah.
it's kind of like this superiority almost when dealing with any other culture, where it's like, well, yeah, like obviously we're better than you, and I'm sure this happens in any country to some extent.
Yeah.
but especially with a world power like America,
It's
there is
really
a
hard not to spot. Yeah.
for sure, and there's a specific brand of arrogance that comes with it. A real Nebuchadnezzar type thing. No, it's just like really like it's fascinating. Yeah, and not good and bad. I'll say it.
It's I'll come out and say it. I'm going to put my foot down. It's bad.
It's bad. Historica esoterica take bad.
Yeah, historic esoteric take bad brackets.
Yeah.
It was good when the Russians did it though.
It was good when the Russians. Yeah, no.
That's a Matt K. Ultra take. Don't worry.
That's a Matt K. Ultra
I'm not
take.
going to co-sign that from the official HE account. Which
Yeah.
boy, I need to figure out our Twitter login. But
You sent it to me, so if
Okay,
you just Google it in our Discord chat, it'll come up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for this exact reason you did that.
Yeah.
So if you not Google it, but if you do the search bar and like type in password, I'm sure it'll come up.
Perfect.
Yeah. We built in some of these things. Hopefully you remember the Instagram one though.
That one, I think I still just have that on my phone.
On
I just
saved.
haven't
Okay,
opened it in like a year.
This will be talking shop a little bit, so maybe I'll cut this out. But I have been clipping our old episodes. I made like a nice little format for a video clip to put on like YouTube Shorts and TikTok.
Oh,
and so I'm just
sick. Okay.
stockpiling a bunch of 1-minute clips of us talking.
Yeah.
And I'm doing like the subtitles of each of us talking, and I've got a little animation of our little Twitter icons like
perfect.
lighting up so you know who's who and who's speaking over our cozy little background. So anyway, that might be something we might
Sick.
start doing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I
To
I can start.
get the Zoomers. We'll see if they deplatform us.
Yeah, I do like that. We upload a single episode. We upload like a single 1-minute clip, and then like everything, all of our platforms immediately shut down.
Delete it. Yeah. I'm just arrested. I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
why is Matt not arrested?
I'm just keeping my head down. It's the scene where it's the scene in The Sopranos where like Johnny Sack gets arrested and Tony just like
Right.
runs away through the forest. Like
Yeah, exactly.
so I'm doing this.
Also-
I can run significantly farther because I'm just a smaller and lighter man than
Yeah, you're a lot less winded.
yeah.
You'd be like, I love the woods. This is perfect.
I wanted to run off into the forest already.
Also, that says a lot about you casting yourself as Tony Soprano and me as Johnny Sack. I'm not gonna read too deep into it.
All I will say
but-
is just in the context of this exact scene.
sure.
Because we all know I'm Chris Moltisanti, unfortunately.
I think you're
you know,
definitely Chris Moltisanti. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't.
Where's my arc? As
Yeah,
as I've
exactly.
asked many a time, fame this
Obviously.
past year.
And I'm AJ.
Yeah, I'm sitting on a dog.
There you go. I'm in new metal attire playing N64, which is, well, aside from the new metal attire, not far from the truth. I'm often playing N64. Emulator. But yeah. Anyway, this is a problem too. Is you and I are both so wordy and we talk very fast. So like by the time we finish a thought, I'm like, what were we talking
And I'm
about?
like, where did we start with this?
Where
Yeah,
did we
exactly. No, when you were like, yeah, I've made like minute-long clips. I'm like, wow, how?
Wow. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they are heavily edited, but just
you've
trying
cut
to
out
find
all of the and that which is to say,
yeah, and then Roswell makes a dumb joke in the middle of talking about something really depressing.
Yeah,
I'm like,
Roswell makes a dumb joke. Matt makes an evil joke in the same
Yeah,
discussion.
exactly.
Like,
It's just the way we cope.
yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
I think I've very much nailed our natures in our little cartoon versions of us, where you're like slender and angular and evil, and I'm like round and welcoming.
No, that's the problem. Is all of my friends, even the ones who haven't listened to the show, have just said like, this
Yeah.
just feels right. And they're only when they say that, they're only looking at the cartoon version of me that they can see.
Yeah,
but they're still like,
exactly.
oh, he got you. Like,
Yeah, I know. And I'm not as round as that in real life, but I feel like it does give off my essence.
Yeah, no, it captures
I'm
the vibe.
also slender, but compared to you, I'm like, I had to do something in the character like design to like set us apart visually. You know what I
well,
mean?
That's you're slender, but you're not pallid and gaunt in the way that I am. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
You're a trim figure, but it doesn't like denote evil in the way that my
Exactly, yeah.
trim figure does.
Thank you. I think your trim figure denotes more of a like whimsical mischief.
Yes, yeah,
I think you're very like you're satyr like in the good way.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, exactly. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
impish.
You're impish. You're very impish, and I think that's frankly lovable.
Well, I really appreciate that. I'm just banking on a single woman ever agreeing with you on that one. But
I think a lot of women like that.
let me rephrase.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, we can.
No.
Yeah, very funny that. Yeah, alluding to the possibility of a woman liking me is the one thing where I'm like, well, let's cut that out. Actually,
Yeah.
but-
Hold on. That's disgusting.
Yeah, I would never.
Let's keep all that N-word talk in, though. No, yeah. Man, have you kept it up at all? Maybe we should talk about this because there is a parapolitical scene, right?
Oh yeah.
And for the longest time, it was like, are we allowed to name drop on this? Is that opening ourselves up to smoke?
It might be.
Should
yeah,
we? Do you care?
Let's
'Cause
talk
I'm not
about.
try-
We'll talk
I
about
don't-
it, and then we'll see if
We'll see what we think.
after the discussion, we'll see how smart we sound, and then we'll decide if we. If
and
we cut
how
this out.
mean we sound too.
Yeah.
No, I'm not intending to be mean, but so obviously we've got the two we've mentioned, Subliminal Jihad and Jimmy Fallon Gong.
Oh yeah.
Program to Chill, but then there's like also there was a further universe beyond with things in the realm of like Ed Opperman and other stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm curious, have you kept up at all with the scene? Because I kind of dipped in and out for a while, and I've not
was
really
was the Ed Opperman drama, was that after we stopped recording? Because I remember
I think it might have been.
messaging with a couple people because I'll admit, like, I was an Ed Opperman listener. I
didn't listen to.
mean,
much
yeah,
James.
I know that you have listened to at least all of his Dave McGowan episodes.
You.
Well, because I'll admit that's what got me into him, right? Was I was like,
Yeah,
oh, he's
absolutely.
interviewed Dave McGowan. Awesome.
I listened
Like,
to a few without him, and I was kind of without Dave, and I was kind of that's where I was like, like I listened to one where like he interviewed a guy who was like likening schizophrenia to actual like demon attacks, and I was
Oh
like,
yes, I do recall that one.
yeah, and not that it was like all bunk or completely ill informed, but it was just a little, I don't know, it just made my eyebrows raise.
Yeah, no, and again, going back to what we were talking about before, right? Like, you don't have all the information, but you should also, I think, trust your intuition broadly.
Yes.
Like, if you start listening to someone and you're like, I don't know about all this,
Yeah,
that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep listening to them. There's, this week might have to cut out, but there's at least one or two shows that I could name and won't, that I follow from our account, where I'm like, half the time when I listen to them, I'm like, oh, you guys are just wrong entirely. But I'm like, yeah, I kind of like this. I can't help but enjoy it.
Here, name them. I'll write down the time frame so I can cut it out. So, yeah.
I think their hearts are in the right place, even if they just
That's
lean in a
important.
more conservative direction than I do.
Yeah.
Right?
And, I can't hold that against anybody because obviously the people we listen to are very leaning in a certain direction. A lot of them are.
No, exactly.
leaning
And
in-
yeah, and then the other one is Vigilant Citizen. My hero,
Yeah.
the only journalist I trust. I look at him the same way that Rorschach looks at the insane racist newspaper and Watchmen.
Yes,
I'm like,
exactly.
before I'm killed by the deep state, Vigilant Citizen will receive my journal in the mail.
I love it. Yeah. And he may or may not be horrified.
Yeah. Oh, I like to think he'll be horrified in all the right ways and one or two of the wrong ones as well.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah. I don't know. The problem is you posted a meme, which makes me laugh. Because again, I'm not particularly for like labels of left and right. I don't think that really matters.
Yeah.
In the end, because I do think where you fall might be a good litmus test as to what your of course your values are.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think it means that much. More so as your actual ideology in your brain. That being said, there's a great meme you posted. You might remember this, where it was leftist conspiracy theory, and it's all these sourced quotes. It's delving into business. I actually went and found the records myself, and then it's conservative conspiracy theorists. It was the Jews with space lasers or something like that.
Yeah, I remember it was something like that. Yeah, because it's if you look at the person who did this act on this day, well, he used to work at this company, and the CEO of that company is cousins with this other guy who worked for a broad oil conglomerate. Yeah, and then like you said, the right wing is like they were Jewish or black. Well,
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. For some reason, like the slight pause when you said worked for abroad, I was like,
well,
careful now.
We can't
like
rule
women.
them out.
That might be a fun pivot to do. Is instead of blaming it on the Jews, just start blaming it on women.
Yeah. Oh, I would love it if we get welcomed into the manosphere.
Yeah.
Like
That would be great. Just like commenting on 9/11 footage, being like, "Women drivers, am I right?"
yes.
I'm sorry, women, for that joke. Just a little bit making fun of people who wake women. Actually,
We're just being a little silly. Yeah.
being a little
If
goofy.
ever I say something you disagree with, I was actually satirizing a different person that you disagree with, and I'm still on your side entirely.
Whoever that guy you were thinking of, who you hate in your mind, I was making fun of him.
Yeah,
And
I
I'm
hate
your
him.
friend. Yeah, that guy stinks.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson.
Women, please DM me. But
Yeah. Don't DM me. I'm righteous.
yeah, look, light and dark. You know, I need to.
That's
I need
right.
to be here to catch our DMs to catch
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You're actually doing a valuable service by talking to.
If you think about it, yeah, by speaking to all the beautiful women who disagree with the crazy things we say.
Yeah, because that is a thing that happens anyway. Is beautiful women in our DMs disagreeing with.
I hate to say it, in my personal experience recently, at least one of them has disagreed with a few of the things I've said. But
Really? Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but that's not really related to the show, though.
no,
No, yeah,
we'll get her. But
yeah, we'll get her. Oh, we should. Yeah, you should be like, listen to this one.
check this out. It's just
Okay.
like it's the episode where I say that witchcraft is real.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, speaking of what, let's close it out with some magic talk, just to really round
I forgot
things
about that.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we talk like we try to talk very academically on our main episodes, which I think is fair and has a place. But now we can just kind of ramble, I think,
Oh, for
about
sure.
magic. So can I just ask you point blank, because you just said you think witchcraft is real,
Yes.
but I don't want to say I'm not specifically witchcraft, but like magic, like what do you call it? Paranormal
Yeah.
powers. Is that real to you? Let's
so
hear it.
I think I alluded to this very early on, maybe even during like our Grimoires episode. But
Yeah, maybe.
But I feel, I think the answer, unfortunately, is kind of like a wishy-washy, like yes and no, right? Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
genuinely think that like perception shapes reality to at least a certain extent, right? And so like this also I think ties into my own like personal experience. Like in my past, another thing I think I've mentioned on episodes before, right? Like I was like into ritual magic for a while, like practicing it, doing things like that, like chaos magic rituals and things like that. And then coincidentally, my life fell apart at that exact same time.
Fascinating.
There were other factors at play, but also I think I would be lying to myself if I said that those two things were entirely unrelated, right? Like I think
They mix together in some way.
yeah, there is a powerful and real strength to something like ritual, just as a practice, right? The ability to do these sorts of things to
Sure.
try and shape one's will, and to acknowledge that you feel you have the spiritual strength to enact a change upon the world in accordance with your will. I think that in and of itself is very powerful, but also like on a more like maybe grounded or academic level, right? Another thing we've alluded to in the past, witchcraft and just magic more broadly. Yeah. Like shamanism, even things like that, for much of human history and for many human cultures were taken to be real. Like it wasn't, people didn't say like, I believe in the devil. It was a fact of life that the devil was real. Right. And as we said
Might
before,
still be.
and might still be, but yeah, but if you are willing to acknowledge that, which I feel if you understand history, you have to acknowledge that fact.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I feel you're going to be kidding yourself if you think that no one ever attempted to utilize that power, right? And you can be
sure.
a complete atheist while also acknowledging that there's something there, and that there is, I feel, there is an intentionality there. It's Thomas Hobbes actually wrote about like witchcraft, and his take on it basically was like, I don't think this is real, but I think that the people who are doing it think it's real, and
Yeah.
therefore, like if you cast a spell and the purpose is to like cause me specifically to like bleed from my mouth until I die, even if I don't think that spell will work, I'm going to be somewhat peeved that you
Yeah,
tried
exactly.
to make that work. Like, so,
You had an effect on me.
yeah.
So
And,
in an effect, it worked. You know, it had power.
yeah. And also,
Yeah.
like, to just, like, become a Kantian briefly, right? Like, your intentionality there matters, right? Like, even if
Sure.
it doesn't work, even if I never learn of it and I'm never bothered by the fact that you did that, you were trying to do that.
Exactly.
And that's why Hobbes was like, yeah, man, I don't believe in witchcraft, but if I see a witch, I'm going to hang her because she was doing something bad.
Real.
She was trying to do something bad, if nothing else.
True.
Attempted murder is still a crime.
It's
Like,
not great. It's really something you shouldn't do.
Yeah, exactly. And so
Yeah.
to answer the question, like very briefly, I would say, yeah, I think that like magic as a concept or just the occult is a sphere that should be taken very seriously, even by people who don't believe in it, just because of
Yeah.
the depth of research and history on the matter. But what say
Sure.
you, Roswell?
Well, I kind of agree with you a little bit on the like it makes me think of, I don't know if you remember the whole if you were on the internet for the whole Slender Man era of things.
No,
and-
actually, yeah. Sorry,
You were?
please continue. Yeah, I was on. That was like when I was. That was like baby's
Yeah.
first interaction with that like sphere. But please, sorry, continue.
Sure. Yeah, it was pretty. I mean, we're not that far apart in age, but it was like I was still pretty young when that was happening, and I love creepy things, so I was like
Yeah.
into all the little stories. But obviously, Slender Man is not real. It's an invention of the Something Awful forums in like 2011 or something.
Mm-hmm. But
you know,
nonetheless,
and
like
nonetheless, I mean, everybody remembers when that girl took the other girl out into the forest and tried to murder her.
Mm-hmm.
So Slenderman, so is Slenderman like as a conscious entity real? No, but Slenderman did try to kill that girl.
yeah, like he,
You know what I mean?
yeah, it had an effect in the same
had
way
an
that
effect.
like you can be an atheist, maybe even like a Satanist Dutch George. But I feel if you're looking at something like Richard Ramirez.
Sure.
And treating it flippantly and acting as though this guy who says like, oh, I was killing these people for the devil. That was my entire purpose here, was that I wanted to sacrifice these people for the devil, the
Right.
manifestation of all evil, who I worship. That is significant, I think.
Yeah.
And it's the sort of thing that should be addressed. And it's the sort of thing that maybe contemporary like arguments about like the satanic panic sort of throw out.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think you have to remember like I don't know exactly what you'd call the model of thinking our modern world uses. I mean, I guess it is materialism. I mean, I guess it's Western science, you know, right? Where it's like logic and facts and like material, you know, like if I can't see it, I don't believe it. Like that's very much kind of the sort of the tone of, you know, Western belief, right?
Yeah.
That is the tools people are taught in school to look at the world. So when you use that tool set, you know, obviously magic, you know, spirituality, it doesn't fit into that tool set, but it doesn't mean it's not real in some way. And like, that's why, you know, magical thinking and like other tool sets to view the world are important to understand. Cause even if you don't think they have, I guess, a physical relation to our planet, they do through the very nature that someone believes them.
Yeah.
And it causes things to happen in a, you know, physical way. Like it interacts with the world in that way, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Like ideology and spiritual beliefs, so long as anyone on this earth believes in them, they hold power. And,
Right.
you know, through, even if only through my own actions, I am giving credence to the ideologies I believe in and
Sure.
enacting this will upon the world, even if it's in like small ways where it's just
Will.
like, yeah, even if it's just in like small ways where like I'm, you know, making snide remarks to Marx. I mean, snide references to Marx when I
Right.
talk. Nonetheless,
Yeah.
that
It's
ideology
out
is
in the
still
ether.
here. It's present
Yeah.
and it's having an impact on the world.
Sure. Yeah. You're making me think about it. You're causing the chemicals in my brain to flow a certain direction.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
we
if
gotta-
we want to get.
I would love to be mean about neuroscience for an episode, but
Oh yeah. You know what? Honestly, I did a lot of research into it, and I would love to be too, because I am not entirely convinced of that worldview.
oh yeah, no, I took this was my freshman year of college, so this was a whole different mat. But one of the beliefs I have held over from that point is just like a deep disrespect towards neuroscience as a field.
Yes.
I took a class on minds, brains, and neuroscience is what it was called, and a friend of mine like last year, reread through that paper, which is like 18-year-old Matt at all of his intellectually arrogant glory. I want to be very clear. It's not a good paper. It is funny, though. I was, as you said, born to be a polemicist. But but I had a friend who read through it. She was like, wow, you really hated neuroscience back then. And I was like, just remove the past tense and you're right. But
Yeah, we hate neuroscience, but we love Andrew Huberman.
look, you got to separate the art from the artist. I don't like his art, but I love his life.
I love him.
No,
I mean, he is kind of a mega Chad.
I was reading a book a couple days ago for a class, and Andrew Huberman just got like casually referenced, and I was sitting there like smirking, like, should I reference that in my reading response for this for today?
Yeah.
I don't think I will, but boy, I'll be tempted. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, sorry. Neuroscience. What were we talking about before that?
magic.
Yeah.
Magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like amorphous forces more broadly, I
Sure.
guess. Like
Dark forces.
the concept of history, I feel, is equally relevant here, right? Like
For sure.
history as a concept does not actually have a will. It does not have an endpoint. But
Yeah.
understanding like the march of history with a capital H is,
Yeah.
I feel, a valuable skill to have.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you more questions about your time with ritual magic if you're willing to answer.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
So, how did you get into it? Like, what piqued your interest? What made you take the step to actually, instead of just reading about it or being interested, actually actively participating?
Yeah, for sure. And so, like, full disclosure, this is a period of my life that I do not remember a ton of for a variety of reasons. But yeah, no, I was at that point in my life. I was definitely just sort of like searching for like anything really. Like I grew up very religious. I had left the church I grew up in at that point and was just sort of adrift.
Yeah.
And so I was trying on everything, right? Like I checked out most of the major religious like tendencies in this world and had flirtations with them that were more or less serious. Some of them I would even describe as situationships. But
You had a couple talking stages.
there were a couple talking stages there. You know, me and Buddhism, we fizzled out pretty quick. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
you know, but nonetheless, and so I just sort of eventually you find your way to more esoteric things. I've also always just had an
Sure.
interest in those things, like the
Yeah.
concept of like esoteric knowledge or like even just Gnosticism as a concept, like occultism,
Right.
like that which is hidden, has always been appealing to me just because I'm a curious person in that specific way, right? Like, I think describing yourself as a curious person is very narcissistic. Like, everyone on Earth is curious about something, right? And it just depends on the angle with which you are the angle from which you're curious, right? And in my case, like spiritual matters and the occult are definitely things which I feel the need to look into, or at least felt
Sure.
the need to look into.
Sure.
But I came across Condensed Chaos is like the book that really got me into it, right? Like there's a lot of the Discordians who were also very interested in chaos magic. They wrote like novels and things that I was
Yes.
familiar with. So I had come across the concepts in the past, but it wasn't until I really read Condensed Chaos that I like actually became very interested in it and started looking into it. And one of the things about chaos magic that I find very interesting now even and that at the time was very seductive, right? In I think an ultimately dangerous and destructive way was
Right.
it is very much it is a practice of radical openness towards like all spiritual possibilities, right?
Yeah.
Like the chaos magician will explicitly and intentionally invoke any number of spiritual traditions in order to achieve a goal, right?
Right.
And again, like I said, for someone who was who is not very grounded at the time, but was still very spiritually curious, for me, that was very appealing. And so, yeah, you would just even the smaller things, right? Like just like doing like a small little ritual to start the day off, or even like one of the things that I'll admit I still like have flirtations with every now and then, right? Like tarot reading, right? Like I would tell people like at the time, maybe like the only like straight man on Earth. Well, straight might be an exaggeration. I'm the only cisgendered man upon this Earth who. I don't want to hear it. Don't make that face at me.
I'm not gonna say anything.
Sorry. Who like will like read tarot, and the ultimate goal there is not to talk to cute astrology girls, right? But
Sure. Yeah, it's funny because like if you said that to anyone who didn't know you, they'd be like, "This guy." But me knowing you, I'm like, "Oh yeah, that was the furthest thing in your mind."
yeah, exactly, right? Like, but exactly, but that I felt was a good like my approach to that. I think is a good demonstration, sort of what you were asking about, like my approach to chaos magic more broadly. Where what I would tell people, even in the moment, because I would just do like a simple like 3-card draw, right? Like I wasn't even like doing like a Celtic cross or anything crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not like, I don't think that there's anything, I don't think I'm getting a sign from the universe in these cards that I draw, but I think I'm giving myself a filter through which I can look at the experiences of this day by just going simply like past, present, future, what have we got? And it would highlight specific things, right? Like based on the symbology of the cards and what I knew about them, and also my own personal interpretations. Based on what I drew, I would prime myself to experience certain things or to look for certain things, which I think, in a way, can be valuable, right? Much in the same way that like an openness to all spiritual traditions can be. Like there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think there's something very healthy and intellectually honest about that sort of instinct.
Sure.
But if you, going back to like our Under the Silver Lake discussion, right? Like if you come at these sort of issues without something to ground you, without some sort of framework through which you can understand the world, if you don't have something on this earth to serve as like your compass and to point you in the right direction, very easily you can just sort of get lost in the woods and just lead yourself very far astray and just sort of like pickle your brain with thousands of like esoteric scrolls written by like mad Greeks in the year 1500. Without understanding the things of value within them. And that's why I've always exercised caution when it comes to the occult, because I treated it very flippantly, and I think paid the price for that in my day.
For sure. And like even if someone as decadent and reckless as Aleister Crowley is telling you to be careful with it. Yeah. Or someone, I mean, just going back to the outset of this podcast.
I have met like people. Yeah.
Christopher
who claimed to be Satanists.
Who claimed to be involved with black magic. Never, never, never.
Truly just one in a billion, that voice.
He rocked.
Just,
he rocked. Oh, man, I love him. Saruman.
Maybe we'll watch The Wicker Man, too, speaking of HE themes.
Yeah, I've seen that one. The first movie... This might be a hot take. The first one kind of sucks.
Really?
I didn't.
Well, now I need your hot take
themes.
on the Nicolas Cage one instead.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's good.
Unfortunately,
I've heard it's actually good.
Look, we're this deep in. I just said that I believe in magic. I admitted to reading tarot cards. There's nothing embarrassing I could say at this point. Nicolas Cage is a good actor, and none of you can convince me he isn't.
I'm with you 100%.
Thank you. I know that like He's undergoing a soft renaissance right now, so this take is becoming slightly less hot. But even now, I feel half the time like the take around like, you know, because he's made like a bunch of good movies in the last 10 years, and every time he makes one, everyone goes like, "Isn't it crazy that Nicolas Cage was in a good movie?" It's like, no, he's a good actor. He just also never has money, so sometimes he has to be in bad ones. But even in those ones, he's the best part of the movie.
Yes, exactly. And he's just very compelling and very entertaining, and it's a movie. You're allowed to be entertained.
Yeah, you're allowed to have fun with an actor. Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Take it from me, a man who loves to not have fun at the movies. You can have fun at the movies.
You can do it. Yeah. No, it's true. And yeah, he's just great. I watched Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. Man, what a movie! What a film!
What a film! I mean, dude, everything about that movie rocks. Werner Herzog incredible. Is just so good.
He's so good, and like, man, Werner Herzog.
Okay, have you read The Twilight World?
No.
Okay, I'm going to briefly step out of my closet, so I may run over to my bookshelf and grab it real quick, because I'm going to tell you, my mom is the coolest person on earth. This was a book she bought me for Christmas. I don't think I requested it, but just like, you know, she was just like, here, have this. It's a it's not technically a novel because it is about real people. It's about like a group of Japanese holdout fighters after World War II, like the ones who like kept fighting the war until like 1973.
Right.
I'm just going to read you the first paragraph of the book to give you an idea of the vibe. Hang on, I'll be right back.
Okay, heck yeah, for sure.
Feel free to say something mean about me. My headphones are off. I won't be able to stop you.
Oh yeah, I will. Yeah. For the listeners, I'm going to say something real mean about Matt. I'm getting close to the mic, so no one hears me. Matt's actually a very sweet young man. I respect him a lot. I think he's got a great heart and a great brain. And I don't know if he'll listen to this, but I think he's great, and you should all be friends with him.
All right, he's back, but the headphones aren't on yet. Get him in while you can.
I really got you, dude.
Did you get me?
Yeah, sorry. But,
No, that's all right.
So
All right,
don't
one
listen
second.
to the episode. You'll be mad.
Oh, you know me. I cannot listen to myself speaking because every time I just think of a slightly more elegant way I could have phrased something.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I just want to jump off a cliff.
And I just listen to myself, and I'm like, why am I laughing at everything? Why am I so jolly?
Yeah, well, look, and the answer is because you have a very funny and charming co-host. What can I say?
Oh, all right. End the podcast.
But
All right.
yeah, okay. So before the first paragraph, I forgot. He makes this note. It's like his version of the because in any novel, there's like this is a work of fiction, any resemblance to persons living. Instead,
Sure.
this one starts with most details are factually correct, some are not. What was important to the author was something other than accuracy, some essence he thought he glimpsed when he encountered the protagonist of this story. Which is to say, Werner Herzog is an understander of the spiritual truth. But
Yes.
anyway, this is the first, one of the first sections of it. This is also the quote they put on the back. The night coils in fever dreams. No sooner awake than with an awful shudder, the landscape reveals itself as a durable daytime version of the same nightmare, crackling and flickering like loosely connected neon tubes. From daybreak, the jungle has twitched in the ritual tortures of electricity. Rain. The storm is so distant that its thunder is not yet audible. A dream? Is it a dream? A wide path, on either side dense underbrush, rotting mulch on the ground, the leaves dripping. The jungle remains stiff, patient, humble, until the office of the rain has been celebrated.
Man, that's well written.
Oh yeah, no, and the whole thing is like that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's so good.
Okay.
It's a book that I read in a single hour and then have not stopped thinking about for 6 months.
Okay, I'm gonna read that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's the exact kind of prose I love too.
Oh yeah, where it's
Where you just sit back and you go, ooh.
yeah, you're like ooh. Yeah, good writing
Yeah.
should give you goosebumps.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's hard to find. I mean, don't even get me started on book talk, but it's hard to find.
We could do a
Good
whole
books.
episode worth of things that we need to cut out if we talk about book talk. But the
True.
lost files.
We'll have Coach on for that episode.
Yeah, just us being mean at women who write
Yeah.
mean to women who write erotica. But
Exactly. And then just stick it on a hard drive and never show it to anybody.
stick it on a hard drive and drill through it.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. We just needed to exercise that from our souls. Oh, man.
And locking it in a vault like Prince. I'm like,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It'll be released on our death to the 10 people who listen to this show. They're just like, why did you give us this?
why did you do this?
What
This
a
is the
terrible
only thing in
will.
the vault. Like,
I don't like you anymore. Now,
this-
you're dead, and I don't
was a
mind.
USB drive with 45 minutes of him being vaguely sexist. Like,
But not even really committing to it.
yeah, not even really committing to it. He's more just sex negative than he is sexist. Like, it's,
And you know what? I'm going to make a hard stance. I think some sex negativity is good.
oh,
We can't be so positive.
that's the thing. Yeah, I'm not sex negative. I'm just sex don't be weird. That's my take on it.
That's my take on a lot of things. It's like, don't be weird. And also some things can be personal.
Yeah.
You don't need to justify every single weird thing you do by having a diatribe about it in public.
Yes.
That it's actually righteous and good.
Yeah, hey,
You know what I mean? It's
do you
okay
know-
to have a weird thing.
Guys, do you know why The Long Day's Journey into Night is such an influential play? It's because when Eugene O'Neill aired out all of his dirty laundry,
Yeah.
it was something most people weren't doing at the time.
Sure. Yeah.
And also, when he wrote it, he was like, hey, never perform this. Even after, I want this to not be seen until 50 years after my death and never be performed. And, 15 years after his death, everyone read it and went, no, this is great, actually, and we need to
Yeah,
perform
this
it.
is
But
sick.
no,
Yeah. We're going to make the entire world like this eventually.
if Long Day's Journey into Night were uploaded to Instagram Reels, it would be the poly couple.
Yeah, I need to look more into that because that's something I've only vaguely heard about, and yeah, I
It's
don't know
sorry, Long Day's Journey.
details. Yeah,
I've read it twice in a year now for 2 different classes, and let me tell you, both times I read it, I was like, wow, this is one of the greatest works I've ever read. I don't want to read it for another 30 years. And then
Yeah.
the next semester, one of my other professors said, hey, this is one of the greatest things I've ever read. We're going to go over it for class. And I was like, oh no,
you're like, thank you.
I
Thank you
can't
for
keep
ruining
doing
me.
this. But
Yeah. I can't believe you've done this. Yeah, I probably won't read it, but I'll probably read the synopsis on Wikipedia.
no, it's great. Yeah. I mean, the synopsis is basically, he's just like, they're all addicted to drugs and evil. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Oh, so it's sick, is what you're saying. So it's actually cool.
Yeah, it's about cool people. No, that's the thing is, yeah. Even like Notes from the Underground, which I was talking about with
Yeah.
one of our most loyal listeners, actually. But I was discussing it with him a few days ago. I was like, Notes from the Underground, just like chronologically speaking, not in my own lifetime. Like I've definitely read other things before that, but this might be the first ever like literally me novel that was written.
Right.
The one where a guy's like, I'm a sick man, I'm a spiteful man, my liver is diseased. And I'm like, oh, yeah, man.
Oh. Heck yeah. Oh, that's funny. That was also
That's Dostoevsky. Notes
oh,
from the
that's
Underground.
Dostoevsky.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You read a lot more than me, I'm gonna be honest.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm good at on this
You're
earth, so-
voracious. Yeah.
yeah. So
I'm great at watching movies.
no, one of my friends was teasing me a while back. So I was like, yeah, when I really started getting depressed, I mean, I didn't really do much reading. I mean, I would do all the readings for homework and I would also read like Moby Dick and Gravity's Rainbow. But other than that, I couldn't handle anything. And she was like, Matt, that is a lot of reading, actually. I was like, in retrospect, yeah, you're right. Like,
Good point.
I've set the bar quite high for myself here in terms of the quantity of reading that
yeah,
I do.
Yeah. You've made another rule for yourself
And
and only for yourself
and-
that nobody's enforcing but
yeah,
you.
but I want to be clear. No loopholes on that one. I abide by it strictly. But
Oh man. Yeah. Oh shoot, what were we talking about? This is the one problem with a looser episode is
Oh,
we're
yeah.
just gonna go off on tangents.
yeah, well, and we're like on like we're 4 tangents deep at this point.
We're 4 tangents
I could
deep.
not tell you what it was we were initially talking about.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you either.
I mean, aside from the concept. Of
oh,
historic
ritual
esoteric.
magic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we figured out how you got into it, what intrigued you. What did you do? Like specifically?
No, for sure.
If you're willing to say.
like I said, there are a couple things here. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna need to
You can
dance
dodge.
around. Just
You can dance around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I know
yeah.
you killed an infant and drank its blood.
Yeah, I killed an infant and drank its blood. No, well, I will say, actually, another thing I'll loosely allude to. There was a little bit of blood magic going on. It was only my own, but you know.
Oh well, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's
Well,
gonna judge you for that.
No, and that's the thing is, again, in the, funnily enough, the lamest and also most Matt way possible, much of it was functional. I just indulged my own impulses towards like self-harm and ruining my life. But I
Sure, yeah.
coated them with a sheen of like,
You're like, actually, I'm supposed to be doing this.
it's like, actually, I'm right now, it's the Rust Cole classic. Where he's
Yeah.
like, and I felt like I was mainlining the secret truth of the universe. And it was just that I was, like getting drunk and going like, Horace, hear me now. But
And Horace was not listening.
oh no, that arguably the problem is that he was listening far too much.
He was. He's like, this guy's hilarious. Curse him for another 3
he's
years.
like, this is funny. Give him some locusts. I want to see how he handles it. Yeah, all of the plagues of Egypt were visited upon me, but not by
Yeah.
the God of Abraham. Like he was watching with horror and doing everything he could to keep me safe. Well, I was
He's like,
strolling away.
buddy, no.
Come on, please. But yeah, no, like I did a lot of reading, right? Like things like Condensed Chaos and other like chaos magic adjacent works.
Mm-hmm.
This was also around the time I was getting really into like Nick Land, just to give everybody an idea of like the sort of reading I was doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nick Land, who, as a philosopher, right, I think one of the most interesting ones to come out of the 21st century. Also, he himself has admitted that Fanged Numina, on top of having the coolest title ever, just like Condensed Chaos. This is the problem. Evil books sound so cool.
That is a sick name.
Yeah, like
That'd be a
Fang
great
Numina,
band
he
name.
like has since admitted he's like, I wrote basically all of that in an amphetamine psychosis.
Sick.
But as a person who was also in a substance-induced psychosis at the time, I was sitting there reading it like, oh, this guy's spitting. Like, so I was just really the answer is I didn't do anything too crazy, right? Like, I never I never targeted anything at anyone but myself. I never hurt anyone but myself.
Right.
So my regrets really start and stop with like embarrassment and an understanding that like I hampered myself in the future more than anything else,
Sure.
right? But yeah, I was
Sure.
doing just very small rituals. Like I said, even things like starting the day off with like a tarot reading to put a filter on things.
Mm-hmm.
Much of it was like a sort of like self-conscious and meta attempt to, actually going back to Nick Land, like change my phenomenological experience in the world. Rather than actually changing the world, it was going like, I'm going to look at this a different way. Like I'm going
Sure.
to, for the next week, view this through like the filter of this like ancient pagan philosopher
A new
and see what that can
perspective
do. Yeah.
housed in an old perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is I've said before, I think even now, I'm maybe better than many people at noticing just strange things, right? Like weird things that occur. I feel I'm pretty good at picking up on them.
For sure.
And when I was deep into chaos magic, that was the peak of that because I was going like, I'm going to look for weird things. And anytime I see them, I will take them as signs and say yes, right? Like, and again, that will like I had a couple experiences that were just like deeply surreal in the moment, right? Like there was one time this is one of the only ones I can like immediately and clearly recall. But I was just like walking by a dumpster, right? Like just like on a walk, I passed by like a dumpster in the middle of the night and suddenly there's like a very sharp and clear banging coming from it as though someone was like knocking on it, right? Like,
Ooh.
and that is just a weird experience, right? Like from
That's not good.
from a purely
Was it
like,
open?
the dumpster? No, closed. And even in the peak of my madness, I want no part in this and then just sprinted
Yeah.
away. But you know,
just refused to save a homeless man.
yeah, exactly. No, exactly. There's exactly right. Like there's an explanation for it, right? Like it was probably like a raccoon or like the wind like rattling one of the doors. But if you are
Maybe.
approaching everything going like the spiritual world is alive and reaching for me to like drag me kicking and screaming into its grasp, anytime something weird happens, it is imbued with a deeper significance, and that again can be powerful. It can be exciting
Yeah.
in the moment, but it can also be very harmful in the long run for your
Do you wanna hear
mental
my
and
weird-
physical well-being.
Do you want to hear my weird dumpster story?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is the height of the pandemic 2020. I was living downtown in a kind of sketchy part of town. No, I'll just say it was sketchy. I was living in a sketchy part of town alone. No girlfriend, no family or anything near
Oh, yeah.
me. It's
A
the middle of the
solitary man,
pandemic.
if you would.
A solitary man during a turbulent time.
Yeah.
And I was
It's never
very
good to be
lonely.
on your Paul Schrader arc. Take it from me, a man who
No,
has spent his entire life being one of two Paul Schrader characters.
And we're not going to say which ones.
But you will know from
But
what you've
you
heard
will
so far.
know. Not Travis Bickle, thankfully.
One of three Paul Schrader characters.
No. You hate sex too much.
That's very true. Yeah, unlike if Travis
Got it.
Bickle just took her to see. Unlike if Travis Bickle took her to like a reading of Program to Kill instead of
Sure,
the adult theater.
exactly.
That's the only thing that changes about
And
that
she's
movie.
just as mad.
She's so angry. I'm like, I see couples going to this book all the time. Like,
Yeah. Just a lie.
yeah. She's like, no, you don't. Like, it was only single men who look like you. I'm like, yeah, well, that's not the point right now.
Oh, just that great shot of him like getting the call from her on the phone and it just pans away into the hallway and like, what do you mean you don't like Dave McGowan?
I'm like, no, you need to keep reading. No, you don't need to. He's not literally speaking the truth all the time, but spiritually speaking, like that's where
It's
the
an
scene cuts up.
ontological battering ram.
Talking with Charles Ballantyne. He's like, well, Matthew, what would you like to see done differently? I'm like, someone just needs to kill Anton LaVey. He's like,
Which-
he died a decade ago. I'm
Yes.
like, oh, really?
Oh.
Wow.
You just smile and walk outside.
I just pull the car over, park, and walk away whistling to myself. Like,
It's the happy ending.
yeah.
But no,
Sorry,
to finish out the story, yeah, I was living in a sketchy part of downtown. It's the height of the pandemic. I'm like alone. So I'm like going crazy. So I'm like walking around. You know, I'm lonely because I went into the pandemic single, which was not great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you I think experienced that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It was very bad. So I'm sad on that level too. And I'm walking around and there's an alleyway behind my building and I'm walking past a dumpster and it starts to make a clunking noise just like that. And I'm like, I'm freaked out because I'm like, I'm like, oh no.
A demon is within this. Yeah. Like,
Yeah. And then I see something fly out of it and land on the ground. And then I see someone stand up and it is and I don't mean this as an exaggeration, is genuinely the most beautiful like crust punk woman I've ever seen in my life. Like just gorgeous. And she's like in the dumpster, like just rooting around. And I like passed. I was like, hey, howdy neighbor. I said something stupid like howdy neighbor as like a bit, and it was very nice. And then I like went up my fire escape to my apartment, but like there was part of me that was like, do you want to go back down and like be like, you want some water or something?
Do you need
know?
anything? Yeah.
Do you need it? Like, you're gorgeous. Can I help you?
That's special. Yeah, no, in my mind now, every time I think about my experience, it is just going to be that beautiful crust punk woman specifically that was in the dumpster, like calling out to me like a siren
might have been.
to Odysseus.
She might have been. And that is exactly the thing. It could have been like the Cilia or whatever, where I'm like, oh, like there's a beautiful woman out of this dumpster. And then I get close and she grabs me.
Yeah,
yes, exactly. Pulls you in. The dumpster closes and you're done for.
And
it's
the
a real
credits
it
roll.
scenario. Yeah, so that's my fun dumpster story. Yeah. Anyway.
What could have been, but
What could have been? Yeah, it could have been the love of my life.
yeah,
It wasn't.
one very good option and hundreds of just terrible ones.
Yeah, I genuinely don't think that would have ended well. And also, I think it would have said something about me and my caliber of person if I had went down and tried to flirt with a woman in the dumpster, just like a desperate woman. So
Yeah.
I made the right decision. But yeah, okay. You want to take this in for a landing?
Yeah, sure. Let's bring it in for a landing. I don't remember how we do plugs at the end of this thing, but
Well, normally we don't. Normally we have some snappy thing to say. And
right.
Then,
Yes, I could have.
then
And
you
of
say
course,
it's all
the
connected.
classic. Yeah.
Or
Just
I
waggle
have
my eyebrows
a
a little bit.
you waggle your eyebrows. Or if it's the episode where I'm closing it out, I have some snippy joke to say that usually gets you. I've had
No,
some
you
good ones.
got me pretty good.
Yeah. My favorite one still is the devil is real and he's trying to get you.
That I think the coolest thing about that is that you kept in the recording just me going no for a half second before I quit down.
It was really funny. Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I guess just for anyone out there who is listening and who has had a Historica Esoterica sized hole in their heart for the past year,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
we're sorry,
We
guys.
do love you. It's just been tough out here for a couple of boys fighting dark forces.
It's tough out here for anointed gangsta. What can I say? But,
It's true. It's true. But with that in mind, we will have more of these lost episodes coming out at probably a more regular pace.
Yeah, for sure.
think.
I mean,
we could do this
if
pretty
nothing
easily.
else, over the summer when I'm going to be bored out of my mind and
Sure.
just looking
Yeah.
for work. So,
But we will definitely have an actual episode, hopefully sometime soon.
yeah, I think so. I think that's definitely
think so,
manageable.
too.
That's a manageable promise.
That is a
Is
manageable
an episode
promise.
sometime
It's
soon.
a
I can do
single
that.
episode within this year.
Yeah, guys, it's coming December, and I might be under promising so we can over deliver, but who knows?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. December 2024. Mark your calendars for episode 16. But hopefully we'll have like plenty of these because it is fun to just like touch base with you and shoot the breeze. We have fun here.
Yeah,
And
no, it's fun.
We,
It's
I
good.
think we still have some like insightful conversations. in
No,
this one.
definitely.
I think it worked
and
out.
I will say, just like from the listening that I have done, I have done of the more noited scene, right? Obviously, again, returning to the classics, the people that we cite as influences. All of those are very valuable, but also even things like the Trillbilly Workers Party, right? Another
Yeah.
podcast that I absolutely adore. One of the most comforting things about them every week when I listen is just the reminder, like, hey, you're not crazy. There are bad things happening in the world
Sure.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And I like to think that we can approach them with some levity sometimes, but I hope that, like an episode like this one also just serves as a reminder to those of you out there who are maybe also looking at everything in the world with some horror.
Yeah.
Hey, there are bad things. There's good things out there, but there are also bad things, and you're not crazy for seeing them.
You're not crazy. And there's other good people out there who see it and are with you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
Somewhere.
right. Look, everyone else is out to get you, but not us.
Yeah,
we
not us.
understand it. We see it. And we're about to start a Patreon with only a $500 tier, and I can't wait for all of you to start donating.
You will, if you follow us, you'll become our disciples, and we'll tell you the truth.
Yeah.
We'll tell you the secrets.
Oh,
of-
yeah. Look, there have been messages embedded in these episodes, and soon
Yeah.
I'm going to activate them. I'm going to tell you. it will be
If you
time.
put together the first letter of every single sentence in every episode, you might find a message.
And I've just accidentally spelled out a slur. I'm like, no, wait.
Yeah, like, no. It's not even a slur anyone uses anymore. How did he know that one?
This is from a dead language.
This is a slur in Sumerian for a people whose name is lost to time.
Yeah, for people who were killed by the Babylonians. Like,
For the sons of Shem.
this is the other good thing about this. Yeah, if you like a reference to the sons of Shem, well, listeners, you're in the right place. There might not be any other place on this earth for you, but you're in the right one.
I know. We might have to trot out your old mainstay bit, Phil the Israelite, for one of these episodes.
Oh, that could be a
man,
fun one. Yeah.
There's mileage on that boy. That boy's got legs.
A timeless bit. Women love Phil the Israelite, I must say.
I believe it.
More
I
than
might
they
have
love
to-
me sometimes, but that's not...
Wow.
How can I blame them? He's a Renaissance man.
He's a true Renaissance man. Exactly. He's a real Forrest Gump of all times.
Okay, now that we've talked about him at all, we definitely need to bring him up at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that on the next episode, because that could easily fill an hour.
Yeah, last episode 001, ritual magic. Last episode 002, Phil the Israelite.
Yeah, something which objectively is far more embarrassing than my time with ritual magic, but which I am embarrassed of not even a little bit. I love Phil the Israelite. He's my greatest achievement upon this earth.
He's what a great bit. Yeah, So tune in next couple weeks.
Yeah.
To find out about that.
Yeah, it's my version of the Song of Solomon. I'm just doing Bible fanfic, but
This one's just fun. This is
one's
just for the bros. Yeah, that's funny. Also, big ups on you for calling it the Song of Solomon and not Canticles.
look,
Or
I
the
did
Song
what
of Songs.
This is the problem. Every now and then, my King James version heritage bleeds through. But
No, I'm with you. I like that.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, we love you, dear listener. We hope you're having a good time wherever you have been over the past year, and we hope this next coming year will be more exciting and more fun. So
We hope it'll be exciting, but not in the way this past year was.
Yeah.
And
yes, in a good way.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Good point. I meant more so in regards to the podcast.
Oh,
specifically,
yes,
but
absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm sure the Earth will be exciting too.
Yeah, and
Never a dull moment.
well, for old time's sake, I might as well say it to lead us out. Remember, everybody, it's all connected.